Welcome to Healthy South Jersey, the Centenarian Project, the podcast where we help you put more life in your years, not just more years in your life. I'm your host, Dr. Ken, a board-certified orthopedic specialist, physical therapist, CEO and owner of South Jersey Physiotherapy and Functional Wellness, right here in Marlton, New Jersey. Hello, South Jersey. Welcome to another exciting episode of Healthy South Jersey, the Centenarian Project. Today, I have a very special guest, our lead clinical specialist here at South Jersey Physiotherapy and Functional Wellness, Dr. Gina with us.
Hello.
So, I wanted to bring you on today just to kind of bring back the curtains of like what it looks like behind the scenes of what our clinic does. And I kind of want to give the people the backstory of, you are an occupational therapist, a doctor of occupational therapy. And it's kind of untraditional to be in a rehab setting of our nature where it looks beyond like the gym and people's sports and performance, right? So if you wouldn't mind, kind of tell us how we originally learned of you and how we met. I think it'd be an interesting way for people to kind of see how our origin story started.
So I first learned about South Jersey Physical Therapy through a workshop that they did at Burn Boot Camp. And at the time I had some shoulder pain going on, wanted to get dry needling on it. So I came in for an evaluation, signed up for a package, and next thing I knew, I was getting just so drawn in by what they did, right? I wasn't going anymore because of my shoulder pain, but because I was loving the principles of what they stood on and how they ran their practice. I feel like every time I went, I was just learning more information that my clinical mind was loving and divulging. So after I finished my plan of care with them, it might have been even a year or so later?
About that, yeah. I would say like 9 months to a year.
Yeah. Where they put out an ad for looking for a physical therapist to hire. And I was like, nah, they probably won't want me. I'm an occupational therapist. And then it was, again, maybe a few months later that I saw an ad. And I was like, you know what? Let me just reach out. I'll shoot my shot and see what they say. So I reached out, just saying, hi, you're looking for a PT, I'm an OT, would you be interested? And Ken said, well, if you're referring to yourself, like, yes, we'd love to have you, or at least to try and interview.
Yeah, at least, right, yeah. So where my standpoint came from was like, we already knew of Dr. Gina through Burn Boot Camp, which is a very near and dear trusted community partner of ours, and what we knew was like she was just an amazing person and personality, and everyone in the community loved you, right? And we found out of your physical prowess and your, I guess, your training, and one of the well-regarded coaches at Burn Boot Camp as well, at another facility, right? And you were just royalty, and everyone loved you. So I knew like the demeanor and like your clinical background, right? And we're such a company where we are such out-of-box thinkers. And when Dr. Gina reached out, and thank goodness she did, I'm so happy because without her today, like we would not be who we are today. So and of course we made her clinical lead just this past year, because over the last year and some, like the growth and the clinical mastery of what we do, it was just very apparent. And I have to say it didn't come easy, right? Like what we do is very different. Mm-hmm. But where was I going with this? Yeah, so we're just out of the box thinkers, and I said, why not? For a clinical education, I don't know how it was back at James Madison University, right? But at Seton Hall, we actually had physician assistants, occupational therapists, and physical therapists in the same classroom within the first 2 years. So we knew that there were foundational baselines that were the same, right? And then we veered off into our affiliated programs into more specialized, lanes. But I knew at the end of the day, fundamentally, we were all meant to help the clientele, right? And Dr. Gina has some amazing experience with what would you call it, like a subacute
Specifically clinically with OT,
setting,
subacute long-term care.
long-term
and then
care.
Inpatient rehab.
Okay, and inpatient rehab, right, that deals with much more complex neurological and stroke victims, right, like patients, I should say victims, and then traumatic brain. And, it seems like a very different world, but in fact, the more of what we do when we were sports medicine and we went into functional wellness, functional medicine delves deep into neurology. It delves deep into the emotional psyche, the mentality, and then we just went a step further. So if we had the same beginnings of education and you had the license to be trained to touch people and be able to do manual work, and being from an elite level of physicality, and you're a D1 track athlete, and can you just tell people a little bit about your background so that
Certainly. So I actually went to school thinking I wanted to be a PT or a nursing major, and I said absolutely not OT. So funny how things work out. So I went through my undergrad, graduated, and then I actually took a gap year where I worked as a physical therapy aide, which I loved. But I also had a background as a personal trainer. And from what I saw in the outpatient world, in the standard outpatient PT clinic, resembled a lot of what I already was doing as a personal trainer. It was very biomechanical based. So somehow I stumbled across an OT that let me shadow her, and I fell in love with it. It was similar premises, like Ken was saying, to physical therapy, but at its foundational roots is known to be more creative and more holistic based. So I ended up going down that route thinking it would pair well with my personal training background, got to blend both of my worlds together. And then when I came across Ken at SJPT and saw how holistic their practice was, it just clicked for me. It was a no-brainer of this is what I love and what I've wanted to do and always pictured my career being, but I felt like didn't always fit into the box. So I'm very fortunate for Ken and for what he's built this place and our clinic to be, and I'm very fortunate to be able to learn under his mastermind because he's amazing. He's one of the best.
Appreciate it. And what I fell in love with is the concept that occupational therapy was always about function, right? Like, of course, ADLs and being able to feed yourself and being able to get on and off the toilet and out of the bathroom and food shop, right? But like, it follows the exact lines of what we say, just not more years in your life, but more life in your years.
Certainly.
Right? And we certainly bring people way past, right, normal day-to-day function.
Yeah.
And, as part of the Centenarian Project, right, we want people to be able to do that for a long time, right? Our goal is for people to stay functional, not lose muscle and power and capability, so that they don't have to go to a nursing home, right? Like, that was the little like definition of what your background is.
Yeah,
okay?
I think the first day of OT school, I walked into the classroom, and on the board they had a PowerPoint that said, "Live life to its fullest," which is one of the mindsets that I embrace in my own life and love. And as soon as I enter that room, I'm like, I'm in the right spot.
Yeah, and
this is where I was meant to be.
Yeah, which is so cool, right? So what we're building here, right, is certainly different, right? Like I think we are, not to toot our own horn, but we definitely stepped out of our normal boxes and tried to serve our community a little bit differently, because there were, what we saw was there's a missing gap, right? Just after you can basically take care of your day-to-day needs, right? What about your joys of like being able to travel, and what about being able to continue to keep up with your kids, in sports? And we like to say, like, not just keep up with your kids, but let them, not to allow them not to be able to catch up to you, That's what we truly believe in, no matter what age that you are. So so maybe from your own words, this is a untraditional setting, right? If you can kind of shed light on like what's different here, right? We certainly kind of blend the rehab specialties along with functional medicine, and we delve deeper into the regenerative technologies, right? So kind of having all those things together, just in your own kind of view, how could you explain behind the scenes to someone that doesn't know what we do here, like what that looks like inside our doors?
Yeah, I think it really is that holistic approach that we take that makes us stand out. And with that, I know a lot of clinics have started to catch on to that tagline, holistic or even longevity based, but I truly do feel like we do it differently here, right? So we're not just looking at the muscular system, the skeletal system, but diving deeper into nervous system work, into lymphatic work. Because if those things aren't working optimally, the body's not going to be able to heal as effectively. Or maybe, you may have temporary improvements, decrease in pain in the specific areas that we're looking at, but long term, those things will keep showing up either in the same way or even in different ways. So if we don't fix the root cause, things are going to keep popping up. So I think Ken's done a really great job at putting together foundational program here that most of our patients start with to really fix movement patterns, to fix the system, or what I like to say, fixing the ecosystem, right? So decreasing inflammation in the body, decreasing that acidic environment, which is going to prevent someone from truly healing.
Very cool. Yeah, awesome. And then, we claim to be the only holistic functional PTs in the tri-state region, right? But really, what I am happy to say is that we're kind of veering away from being just a physical therapy clinic, right? We're becoming a wellness institution, right? So just later in the year, well, actually next month, right? A functional MD is joining us on premise. So it's going to be a well-rounded kind of view. So as far as someone who, for instance, we pride ourselves in seeing people that have had what we call polyarthralgia, right? They're having unexplained pains, not in one area. It's in 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 areas, and people think that they're all separate issues, right? So in your scope, and now that you've been here for a good amount of time, your seniority, right? What are things that people come in for that you were surprised to see that, yes, they presented as pain, right? But, traditional clinics will say, all right, well, we can't treat 3 things. It's either your neck or your shoulder or your back. Pick one, right? We just know fundamentally that everything's connected. And we learned that even in grade school, the neck bone is connected to the right? Everyone knows that, right? But then you forget in clinical practice. So were there any surprising clientele or patients that come in for something untraditional? Well, they come in originally for pain, right? But surprises you that we were able to address them, and we found out that it was just completely, I wouldn't say completely something else, right? We're still treating the fundamental musculoskeletal pain.
Yeah, so I think that in ways it goes back to the saying of the site of pain isn't always the source of pain. Or even just this morning, I have a patient that's been complaining about knee pain. And recently we've been doing a lot of lower back work, working on decompressing the spine, and she's been having amazing results with it. To the point now where anytime her knee's acting up, she's like, I know what I need to do. I go, either hang on the bar, I use this one machine at her gym that she has to work on decompressing the spine, and she says how her knee pain almost immediately dissipates.
Right. Crazy.
Yeah, it seems like it's magic, but like Ken mentioned, it all comes back to everything being connected. And here at SJPT, the first phase of our rehab is working on mobility, specifically at the rib cage and at the spine. because if the ribs and the spine don't move well, the rest of the body is not going to move well either. Right? We need that proximal stability. You need to be able to move well here to pump the vital organs, to have proper movement patterns, and that therefore decreases vulnerability, increased risk of injury at our extremities.
That's right. Yeah, and it's funny, right? Like these are principles practiced for centuries, right? Like literally thousands of years. So like in Eastern medicine, they say that if you maintain the flexibility of your rib cage and you make sure the spine never locks down, you're literally going to take care of every essential piece of your well-being. Mm-hmm. All right, and it's funny how movement science and osteopathy, and along with acupuncture, they all actually literally mimic the same exact sentiments over and over, and that's where we pattern recognize these principles, right? And even postural restoration, they all speak of these same exact principles. So if it keeps on happening over and over, there must be some truth to it, you know? Yeah.
With that, what we usually work with are people with this chronic pain, right? A lot of our population, a lot of the patients that I see have tried everything, quote unquote, and where there is a time and place for surgery, but I truly feel that the body is made to heal itself. It just needs the proper building blocks to do so, right? And unfortunately, with our high inflammatory diets, our more sedentary lifestyles, between just what we choose to do as leisure activities as well as a lot of desk jobs nowadays, between our stress levels, right? We're always being stimulated by something in the environment. We live in this instant gratification world. Our technology's always in our face, notifications going off, and it keeps us in that high drive sympathetic state. And naturally, simply from being in a high sympathetic state all the time, that increases our stress, and it puts our body into survival mode instead of healing mode. So until we address those underlying issues, or our pillars of health and wellness, as we call them, your body's not even in an optimal state to begin healing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we say that there's 4 pillars, right? We always kind of coach on like how do we mitigate stress, how do we manage stress at a emotional, mental, and physical level. The other things is like sleep, hygiene, right?
Yeah.
What else was there?
Sleep, stress, movement, and our diet.
And diet, right? Diet's something that, unfortunately, our SAD diet, it's the standard American diet, is probably one of the biggest culprits of some of these accelerated aging processes. But the movement, right? The movement variability that was literally built into our system, it was meant to serve us to literally pump the organs and things like that.
Yeah.
Now, like for the skeptics, right? There's a lot of people that says, like this is just PT, and you're just rebranding it as some voodoo science and with Eastern medicine, and it will throw some, energy work at you, and you're going to be healed, right? Could you dispel a little bit of we definitely have clinical science backgrounds of now that we have shockwave, uses acoustic waves, right? And then we have all these technologies. For the skeptics, right? Like, what would you say that we do differently that puts the whole system together, and for a clientele that says, you know what, I've tried everything else, what's your advice to them?
Yeah. Well, we always welcome skeptics. We want you to try it out. What's different is kind of like we touched on earlier, but it's really coming back to that root cause, to addressing those 4 pillars of health and wellness that we were just talking about, and working from the center, right? Working on the ribs, the spine, getting the body moving so that we're pumping the organs, right? That all follows Chinese medicine, right? And what we do here is really a blend of Western and Eastern medicine. It's all research-backed, right? All evidence-based practice that we're doing, and I feel like people call it voodoo because they just don't understand it, right? So for the skeptics, come on in, come give it a try.
Give it a try, right? And for instance, are there any special cases where we also, coming from our background, was there any cases that surprised you in how someone transpired and kind of improved and got better?
Yeah.
With diagnoses as rheumatoid arthritis, right? Or Parkinson's or anything like that.
So one that always stands out to me, I had a patient that came in for osteoporosis and a few other issues going on. And I didn't even know that she had this issue until down the road, but she was talking about her reflux. She was like, my reflux is getting better. I haven't had to take my medication, and now I'm eating foods that used to provoke it, and it doesn't anymore. And that all comes back to the organ work that we do, the nervous system work, and freeing up the diaphragm, the ZOA or zone of apposition, to allow for our organs to work more properly, for our stomach to actually be able to digest food appropriately. Because they say the gut is the second brain. Right? A lot of the work that we do comes back to that gut work.
Perfect. If I might recall, this person that we were treating was a clinical nutritionist herself.
Yes.
Yeah, and she was taking proton pump inhibitors for, I think, something like 20 some years.
Potentially.
Yeah, and she didn't understand why this wasn't brought to her attention, 20 some years ago, right?
Right.
So we're not claiming that we're curing these things, but when you bring the body back to balance and homeostasis, like really strange things start to transpire and heal.
Wonderful things.
Right? Yeah.
Good things.
So we're proud of the work that we do, and I think we're the best is yet to come. We're still in this lab trying to figure out how to make an even better impact. And with Dr. Nussbaum coming on board, I think we'll be able to even do even greater unexpected things.
Certainly.
All right. Yes. So any last words for our listeners?
Just very grateful for this clinic and everything that I've learned from being here. And I'm proud to be able to serve people in our community.
Amazing. So if you guys have not met Dr. Gina yet, you ought to owe it to yourself to come in and experience what she does. She's amazing.
Thanks for having me, Ken.
All right, guys. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Wait for our next guest, right? We'll keep this a surprise because I think it's going to be a really insightful guest that comes into our next episode. So until next time, guys, stay well and keep on moving.